Welcome, everyone, to Watch Challenge. On each episode, we challenge ourselves to find and watch a film of a particular type and then report back the results to each other and you fine listeners. My name is Mike Wendt.
And I'm Aaron Spears. This episode's challenge was Films About Filmmaking. As we discussed in our previous episode, the end of the calendar year for 2022 films seemed a little stacked with, stacked may be a little strong. It's 3 movies, but we've got Spielberg's The Fablemans, which is out right now, hopefully still out. More on that in just a moment. We also have Sam Mendes' kind of possibly autobiographical Empire of Light, which isn't really necessarily about filmmaking, but about the power of film set in a theater, movie theater. And then we also have Babylon, which is coming out in a couple weeks around the Christmas time, which I think of the 3, I'm actually the most psyched for.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's Damien Chazelle, but also it's a pre-code Hollywood debauchery, like big grand thing. Looks like maybe some musical numbers. I'm hope. And I'm also a fan of anytime I get to see a movie where Brad Pitt is having fun.
Yes.
And
yeah.
It's based on just the trailer, it just seems like he's having a blast with this role.
Yeah. I mean, even though I am a little bit intimidated by its 3-hour, 8-minute runtime, I still think there's probably worse things you can do than see the new Damien Chazelle. I just think he's one of our most talented young talents, and I can't wait to see this movie.
I had a different reaction, but in the other way, where I was bummed it was like 3 hours and 8 minutes or whatever it is, because I thought I had heard that he had an early cut of it that was like a 4-hour cut. And I was like, yes, I want to see 4 hours of him doing pre-code Hollywood. It's really fun. But as of right now, like I said, Empire Light is out. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, it's out within a day or so. But currently out in theaters is The Fablemans, which you have caught up with, Mike.
Yes, I have got to see The Fablemans, and it is, in my opinion, only, I guess, but I think it's wonderful. I'm a huge Spielberg fan, as many people are, but I think this one has it has a lot of heart to it. There is just some of these scenes of showing how the magic of cinema, how it can how it can inspire. I mean, I think as somebody who just loves filmmaking and has of course dabbled in filmmaking, I mean, I think those types of people might be drawn to this movie. Some people might be maybe not as into it, depending on, results may vary just based on your interests. You might find it maybe some people might find it a little slow. It's about 2.5 hours, but for me it flew by. And it touched on a lot of different things that you see in his work, such as divorce and and a lot of things like that. But it has a very memorable cameo at the end. I dare not spoil. And it's kind of out there already of like, who this person plays, but that is just one of the best scenes that I've seen in a movie this whole year, and maybe for the last couple of years.
Oh, excellent. Not to overhype it or anything. But.
Yeah, maybe it's too high praise, but
I mean, it's sort of that time of year where like you got to just catch stuff as it comes out, otherwise it's going to get overhyped for you because it's award season and that's how it goes. So using Fablemans as a jumping off point, we're talking about films about filmmaking. So there's certain things that you want to have within that, I guess, say genre, or within that challenge for this particular episode. And I wasn't really thinking about it till we just were reading off those 3 different titles about what's currently coming out: The Fablemans, Empire Light, and Babylon. But it's also 3 very different approaches to that concept. So Fablemans isn't obviously adult Spielberg, like time to go make E.T.
Yeah.
So the level of filmmaking that we're talking about, actually, and I'm looking at my list now, mine kind of vary very slightly. But how did you go about approaching it? Could it just be like a kid discovering like the joy of art and cinema, or cinema as an art form, or did you go like it has to be on a set, or did you what parameters did you have for yourself?
Yeah, this one I didn't really put a lot of parameters for myself. I think I gave a fair representation of the maybe wannabe filmmakers, the up and coming, but then also the established, and in sometimes the established especially where it comes to my eventual final pick here, is like in a way that you don't even expect. And this was like a movie, I'm always doing this. I'm always getting ahead of myself, but I'm giving the tease, I guess. But but this one was it was something that I had heard about, and I was just like, oh, let me see if this is out, if I can easily stream it. And fortunately, that was the case.
Okay.
But yeah. So I kind of just looked at all different aspects of filmmaking, and but I think I tend to be drawn to the ones who the amateurs who want to become you know the Spielberg or something like that. I think that that's like it's an interesting angle. I mean, if maybe slightly cliche, but you know,
Well, it was I really I put up only one parameter was I didn't want to do any documentaries because I feel like
yeah,
documentaries about the making of a film, say like a Hearts of Darkness or something, I think that's kind of a separate topic we can tackle at some other time.
oh yeah,
So I didn't mention that ahead of time to you, I guess, but it doesn't sound like you went that way either.
yeah. I mean, at first I was immediately when I thought about this, I thought about probably my favorite documentary of all time, which is American Movie.
Hmm.
Um, which actually one of the subjects just recently died.
Oh, that's right.
Uh, but uh, but I thought maybe that was maybe too obvious of a choice, or but yeah, but documentaries are like, yeah, they're so much they're so different, where it's interesting to see like the fictional approach to what a filmmaker should be like, or what an aspiring filmmaker should
Right.
be like. Where with American Movie or Hearts of Darkness, which is super established director, but having like the hell of
Yeah.
the hell of bad times making that movie.
Self inflicted for the most part, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that should definitely be a next year episode for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I'll add that to the doc. I also we mentioned it previously with like our midnight movies episode, and I think our film noir and some giallo stuff. Where like this idea of I guess I wrote in my notes as like the basic Google search results. I was trying to steer clear of those. I wanted to dive in to get like as much
Yeah.
as I would love to recommend like an Ed Wood or something. And that's totally fine if I accidentally just spoiled one of yours, Mike. But I was like, well, if you do a basic Google search, you're like, I want to film a film about filmmaking. Well, I wanted to dive in. I'm going to make sure I'm diving a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah.
Just because, like, those are easily findable. And this way you could finally maybe discover something. Also, when I did do the basic Google results, just to tie in with this year end of films, it's almost a theme for this calendar year of movies because you have Ty West's film X, which I liked a lot,
Correct.
is a film about filmmaking. And also Jordan Peele's most recent film, Nope, is a film about filmmaking.
Yes.
Again, a little bit on the periphery. It's animal trainers working in the industry, but yeah, I was like, oh, actually, there's several of these movies this year. What's going on? Maybe when COVID hit, screenwriters kind of looked inward and
Yeah.
were
Well,
like really thinking about what role the film and film industry plays in their lives. But
absolutely. There's another film that is going to be coming on Netflix. I did get to catch it in its brief theatrical run at the Cedar Lee, but Bardo,
oh,
which is
right,
by Alejandro or Iñárritu, which it's basically playing a loose version of himself, but in the film he plays a very famous documentarian. But that one is I'm still kind of processing my thoughts on it. It's an interesting film, and I look forward to watching it again when it comes on Netflix, which I think is almost around the same time as when our episode drops here. So,
okay,
but yeah, it's another. Yeah, I don't know, something in the water. I mean, I thought like initially when I thought about this, and it's not even a movie about filmmaking, but when we had a couple years ago, Roma by
hmm,
Alfonso Cuarón, I think almost kicked off this whole like directors looking back, even though I think other foreign filmmakers have, like Fellini with Amarcord and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
there's always been filmmakers who make films about their childhood, but and then Belfast last year, which
oh yeah,
is inspired by Kenneth Branagh's life. So
yeah, kind of an ebb and flow. Sometimes it comes back, then it goes away for a little
yeah,
bit, then it comes back again. Also, I think you need to have maybe a little bit of distance with your career. Like Spielberg wasn't trying to make the Fablemans like right after Jaws, or like.
Sure.
But I also kind of want to thinking about this topic as well. That like it's a topic that I enjoy, and I crossed. I mean, I had a pretty solid list going that I was like, I really want to do that one, but I want to cross it off. And I was trying to find a theme to go with or something because there's a ton of these, and some of these are some of my favorites, not of all time, but like favorite like rewatches. I just want to go. Like I already mentioned
Hmm.
Ed Wood. Like I can throw on Ed Wood at any time, or if I'm flipping through channels and that's on, I'd be like, well, I'm set for about an hour.
Yeah.
Because I just there's something about the topic that grabs me. Obviously, it's because I'm a film geek, but I wonder if there's a broader audience for this. Like, you could probably always get these films financed if you're a Spielberg, if you're a Cuarón or Inarritu, or a Tim Burton. There's certain filmmakers that are these are going to get greenlit and are going to get some funding for it, even if they have to fight for it a little bit, because it's being funded from an industry that it's going to look at. I
Yeah.
guess in a way, maybe. Not that any funding is necessarily super easy outside of Marvel and Star Wars, but I feel like Hollywood loves looking at itself or celebrating itself.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, I don't know how much, like, I don't think I could get my parents interested in the Fablemans, other than maybe the time period they're interested in. Like, show anybody the trailer and they'll be like, so it's about a family and a kid who likes movies. Like, I kind of wonder
Yeah.
what the broader appeal is of these particular films.
No, you're right. I mean, in just looking at the day that we're recording, the box office numbers for the Fablemans were not good, or
Right, and this is
not
Spielberg.
not
Like,
super great.
yeah,
Like I think it's looking like 3 million over like the whole 5 day Thanksgiving weekend. And I know recently Scorsese did a interview where he said like he hates the fact that there's so much emphasis put on box office performance and everything. So it's like
sure.
I'm feeding right into that trap. But but it's one of those things where looking up like the grosses of some of the films
Mhm.
that I was looking at for this episode, they aside from the one that I actually picked, didn't do very well at all.
Sure.
Like one of them barely, I think, was just like barely released, until it got like a VHS. It got seen on VHS and cable, but
Mhm.
it's like they put it like in a handful of theaters just to obligate its like contract or something.
Right, right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's like sometimes, yeah, I think the general public probably isn't always super interested in it. And I think, and I mean, I guess this could be another topic for something, but I think with the Fablemans, it's like it's not really clear that it's Spielberg. It's like his name's kind of on the trailer and or the
Oh, that's a good
or
point.
the ads for it, but it's not just like this is Spielberg's story. Like it's you kind of have to like I don't know. He said it's semi autobiographical, so maybe he's not comfortable saying the
This is me.
Spielbergs. That's
Yeah.
why he called it the Fablemans, but
Right.
it's like that's probably part of the hard sell a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Because also like it. Well, again, I haven't seen it yet, but it also looking at the time period that it's looking at, it seems like you could play up like a nostalgia factor for that time period that would get like my parents' generation, like, ooh, I would go see that. Like, not necessarily American Graffiti style, but you know what I mean? Like, have a kind of a nostalgia factor for like, hey, remember growing up in the blah blah blah, and
Yeah,
suburb, like all this stuff. You'd be like, oh yeah, I'd go check that one out. But
yeah,
yeah, I guess I knew it was Spielberg, but now that you mentioned that, I was like, there's nothing in the trailer that I remember like really high. Like, it's the Spielberg story told by
right.
Spielberg.
Unless you have the character going like Steven, and then like turns around and then like
Right.
I don't know, like
He picks up his first camera and the ball cap just appears on his head and he grows a beard instantly. Before we get into honorable mentions, I wanted to ask you, Mike, since of the duo between us two, you're the filmmaker. Have you ever seen a film about filmmaking that you were like, that's not even close to how it works?
um, oh, that's a great
Or
question.
like that just rang false to you that you were just like, I don't really know about that. Because my hunch was that it's a genre or it's a type of film that if you're going to make it, you know the process.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. No, that's a great question. I mean, most of the time I think they do get it right. Like I haven't ever like been like egregiously like, oh no, that's all wrong.
Right.
I think a lot of times though, when it is maybe based on a true person, that's where sometimes some inaccuracies might come into play. One of the films I think it came out over the last gosh, probably over the last 10 years, but I remember being a little confused by it was called Hitchcock with I think with
Oh,
Anthony
Anthony
Hopkins.
Hopkins.
Yeah, like there
Yeah,
was a few things in there that seemed almost like they were probably trying to condense like a lot of things like right into time.
sure.
But I can't think of anything specific that was wrong with it. But I remember enjoying it because it was about filmmaking, and
Hmm.
generally I'm just drawn to those films. But I do remember there was a few things in it that just seemed like a little too like easy or on the nose,
On
I
the
think.
nose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember people saying that when they were walking out of that one quite a bit, where I was like, yeah, it's fun, but it was like, well, yeah, it didn't feel like the definitive Hitchcock story. It was just sort of
Yeah.
like
Like
a
it almost
slice
like
of life.
brushed a couple things under the rug, like,
Mhm.
and it just was like, oh, the conflict sometimes is not always there.
Yeah,
it's just like it comes easy for all these people sometimes.
right. All right. Well, you want to start us off with an honorable mention, Mike?
Sure. So the first honorable mention I have is is kind of the movie that I was talking about that was kind of dumped into theaters, but then found an audience on VHS and cable, and it's the directorial debut of Christopher Guest. Best known for Spinal Tap, and of course, and eventually made all these like great mockumentaries. But it's called The Big Picture from 1989. It has Kevin Bacon in it, and Kevin Bacon plays this. He's like kind of like a up and coming director. He wins this student film award and is instantly kind of brought into different meetings, and everything is offered a movie. Everything kind of goes horribly in it. Where he's offered this movie, but then they immediately have all these changes that they want to make to his vision. He has a girlfriend, but then also he's kind of attracted by the Terry Hatcher, of course, from Lois and Clark, um, and Desperate Housewives, and I don't know. It's kind of like it is a. I would say it's not like a laugh out loud funny movie, but it's a very interesting satire of that Hollywood lifestyle, and how it can kind of corrupt you. And it has a really good cast, including like a an uncredited Martin Short, but he gives like a
Ooh.
very interesting role as his agent, who's kind of like flamboyant, and has
Oh,
like
yeah.
this very weird wig that he has on his head. That one is like one of the earlier ones that I remember. Going back to my HBO days, that was that was something that would often play on HBO, and I think Kevin Bacon gives like a pretty. He had like a good run there in the late
Yeah.
'80s, early '90s, where he was getting a lot of leading roles in like probably smaller movies, but no, he gives a really good performance in this, and it's also great to see Michael McKean co-wrote the script, and he has a pretty good supporting role in that as well.
Yeah.
So, pretty good one.
And it's you said 89, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember this being. I know you said it was an HBO staple for you. I remember. I feel like it was like always on Comedy Central at some point too.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It made the rounds for
Yeah.
sure.
I see what you mean by being discovered then, like with the home video and the VHS
Yeah.
market.
From what I've read, or what I was reading, is that it was greenlit by a different. So it was like there was a studio head at Columbia Pictures, and they really championed the film. And then that person was let go. And then when the movie was about to come out, like, this new studio
Mhm.
head, basically inherited the movie, saw the movie, and was just like, uh, you're like almost like shitting on our
Yeah,
on the
that's
system
us.
and our product.
Yeah.
So they kind of buried it. And then so like it says it only grossed like $100,000 or something. But
Ooh, yeah, that's buried.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting, because like something that would have such like a presence on TV, you would think would have been like at least semi successful in the theaters or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. It looks like maybe it went the other route of like nobody remembers this movie. It was cheap to purchase the rights to, and we can do it over and over again on Comedy
Yeah.
Central.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking because '89 as well. Like I know, like you're kind of in the middle of the or at the start of the Sundance Film Festival independent boom after like
Yeah.
Quick Flies and Videotape. So I remember this one when I didn't catch it till like much later. Yeah, like on like I said, Comedy Central or basic cable and seen it. I remembered that like I'm pretty sure his character I think was from Ohio,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then also I was like, oh my god, this sounds like what everybody's doing by trying to get their film into Sundance or into a festival and then becoming the next big thing.
There's a funny joke at the towards the beginning of the film when he's meeting the studio head played by the late J.T. Walsh,
Oh,
who
perfect.
kind of always played like a good sleazeball,
Yes.
like um, but so he tells him that he's from Ohio, and he's like, my wife's friends from Illinois, like, so,
Midwest is just one big state.
right,
You're
exactly.
not from here, I guess. Yeah, that's funny.
How about you?
I went. Oh, you know what? I put these in chronological order again. I don't
Nice.
know. My brain just does that, I guess. All right, next time I'm not doing chronological order. Make a note right now. So I am going all the way back. Actually, I was able to. I rewatched two movies and I watched a brand new one for this episode. And one of the ones I was in a car for a bit, so I had time. So one of the ones I rewatched that I was like, oh my god, that is a film about filmmaking to a degree, but it's one I hadn't seen since film school, and it's laugh out loud hilarious. It's the film The Cameraman from 1928, starring Buster Keaton.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Apparently, it's one of those like he's uncredited as possibly also directing. The directing credit goes to Edward Sedgwick, just kind of a workhorse director from back in
Yeah.
that era. This one is it's got the formula Buster Keaton, like everybody likes like the slapstick and the goofy stuff, or like him around all this chaos, getting caught up in it or not caught up in it. But it's a little I think it's a little different because there's like a really solid like romantic chemistry between him and Marcelina Day, who plays the love interest. So
Yeah.
he is actually like he's a still cameraman in the movie. Not still pictures of people. What do you call it? Portrait. He's a portrait photographer. He has this crush on her name is Sally. She's a secretary who works for MGM newsreels. And so in order to be near her and wow her, he's like, well, I'm going to switch. I'll be a filmmaker. So he's going to become a newsreel cameraman to impress her because that way also he'd be feeding footage into the office that she works at. So like he
Yeah.
gets to be around her more. And of course there's I forget the guy's name, but there's like a romantic rival, of course, that Buster Keaton's gotta do better than. And so it ends up being that so he's going out trying to get newsreel footage. So it's weird in 2022 eyes. There's like some weird night crawler vibes. He's going out trying to find the events as they happen. I mean, it's nowhere near like that level of sleaze. Like this is actually just like slapstick romantic comedy gold. I mean, I think it's like maybe an hour long. It's a pretty quick one.
Yeah.
But one of the things he goes out to do, or when he's on his way out, he gets a tip that something's going down over in Chinatown, and he ends up like filming a gang war. And it's really weird because there's like Tommy guns and like Gatling guns out of windows, like it's over the top like shootout, right? But it's all set with like Buster Keaton and like that, the organ music going, and he's just fumbling around getting all this footage. The selling point here, though, picture those early cameras, like they're bulky,
Oh yeah.
those unwieldy tripods with like the center leg, like all that. Oh my god! And he uses all that as props. Like it's more humor for him. At one point, he goes by an organ grinder, like the dude with like the musical thing with the
Yeah.
monkey on there, and it's inadvertently assumed that it's thought that Buster Keaton killed the monkey due to this little mishap. And so the cop that's next to him is like, okay, well, pay him for that monkey and you take the body with you. You got to get it out of here. And he's like, all right, fine. Well, the monkey was just knocked out, but that's awesome because now Buster Keaton has a monkey buddy for the rest of the film. And when he goes through that Chinatown shootout and all that, he's got a monkey with him, and it's like I mean, it's like a whole melee. Like, and I was just like cry laughing through a good portion of this film.
That's
But also gets some of that early camera, the newsreel vibe. It's a really fun time. So Cameraman from 1928, starring Buster Keaton.
that's awesome.
What else you got, Mike? Any more honorable mentions?
Yeah. So this one is a more recent one. Came out in 2007. It is called Son of Rambo. and it's one of those movies that it was directed by Garth Jennings, who is a British filmmaker. But it's one of those movies when I saw it, which I think it was like a promo screening or something at probably my guess is Cedar Lee,
Probably.
but it's basically about two young boys who see the movie Rambo and decide to remake it almost shot for shot. And around that same time is like when I saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark adaptation.
Oh
It's about
yeah.
these boys who they basically over the course of like 7 summers remade Raiders of the Lost Ark shot for shot. And so like I think I had saw it like just before seeing this movie. So like when I saw Son of Rambo, I was like, oh my god, like this is like so cool. And it's like it's got a really great, like kind of British punk slash new wave soundtrack to it.
Mhm.
And when I saw it at that promo screening, I was like, wow, I think this is going to be like that indie hit that, really just kind of resonates with people. I was like, oh, this is so great. And I remember talking to, our friend Jen Vincent about it. And
Yeah.
I was like, I think this is going to do great. And she was like, yeah, it's probably going to do terrible. I was like, really? I was like, I loved it so much. She was like, yeah, yeah, because like that's your thing,
Right.
but the general public isn't into it. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's one. So yeah, it did came out, or it did eventually come out, and didn't. Yeah, it didn't really make a dent locally or
Mm-mm.
domestically.
Right.
It was a pretty big hit overseas. But it's one of those movies that if you've never seen it, and I'm sure a lot of people have never heard of it, it's so charming and funny, and
Yeah.
I highly suggest it. It's just it's a great little movie, but yeah, it's a shame it just didn't really find an audience here.
It I never did what these kids did, but watching it, like, it so perfectly captures that like 11, 12-year old, like when you have an obsession and it's
Yes,
all you're doing. I'm like, oh my god, like yeah, like it definitely it hit home.
yeah, and like a good cast that like now are in a lot of, when you see British films now, or at least even some that are made here,
Yeah.
like those actors are they're doing pretty well for themselves. So it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
nice. Any other ones for you?
I had one other one that I so like it is kind of in that broad general. If you go a little bit slightly deeper in a general Google search of films about filmmaking, eventually you'll get to Day for Night, 1973 by Francois Truffaut.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite French directors. I remember watching this movie in film school, and I was kind of like, "Yeah, it's good," but it really didn't wow me the way like some of the like the Godard stuff or L.A. Renan or somebody like really hit me. Francois Truffaut stuff really have snuck up on me as I've grown up, and usually when I revisit it, I'm just like, "How did I not notice that?" I'm like, sometimes you just don't watch the right movie at the right time.
Right.
But rewatching it, like oh, so this one is about Francois Truffaut. Like he actually even plays himself in the movie. I think. I mean, he's the director, so it's a movie within a movie. And so with this one, you do get like the actual like you're on set. The way like the cameraman with Buster Keaton was like a newsreel photographer or newsreel film cameraman. This is an actual like they're on a set. There's actors. There's the whole crew with them, and you do get to see some scenes as they're filming them of like it kind of lingers at times on like the scene that they're doing, and it's actually a credit to how good the actors are and the writing and the filmmaking is that you're like there are a couple of times where I was like what's what's going on with that, like I want to see more of that scene. But it
Yeah.
also focuses, and you have Francois Truffaut as the director, but it's not just about the director. It kind of is this ensemble piece where the rest of the cast that's in there, like you have Jacqueline Bisset is one of the main actresses in it. Of course, it's a Truffaut film, so Jean Pierre Léaud is in there. But it doesn't just focus on like the main star of the movie. You also get like, okay, here's I don't know, like the prop department here. Like you see like
Yeah.
a full ensemble of like all the different departments within this film set, named for the way that you film things. Like you don't necessarily always go out and film at night for a night scene. You shoot day for night. Although
Right.
the name of the movie itself is La Nuit Américaine, so it's American Night, which is very different than Day for Night. But I don't really remember why the naming convention was changed there, but you do get Truffaut as a director. He specifically wanted to bring in an international cast because part of the themes that he's dealing with there is like the mythology that is able to be created within cinema, like larger than life personas.
Yeah.
So you get in different actors from all around the world. And I again, I love that it has multiple points of view and all these different little threads, and it really taps into like what you again, this speaks to a very narrow audience though as well. Like it speaks to so many little moments here where like the power of cinema is like, stronger than life, and there's these grand, kind of very French, stereotypical French like philosophical ideas that come up through the movie of like, which is more important, leaving a legacy or living a great life. And I know he filmed or not filmed, but he had this idea after Truffaut came to Hollywood-ish and did Fahrenheit 451. He wanted to do a movie that shows why, like, that's the power of like reading and the art of books, the art of literature, to
Yeah.
change minds and to grow and become better humans. He wanted to do like the equivalent of that, but for film, and I think he did it with this one. And I don't know what I was thinking of when I saw this in film school. I was like, yeah, it's fine, because I was like, just watching it recently. I was like, man, I could hang out with that movie again right now.
Yeah.
Which is a theme I will revisit here in just a moment. But it isn't like you're waiting for like, oh, they're finally done and the movie premieres and it's going to be a hit. Like it doesn't. That's not the ending to it. It's just you're hanging out with these characters and you're seeing the process. Some days go great. Some days like that actor just didn't show up. What are we going to do now? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like it's so light on it has such a light touch. But then you sort of realize like what characters you're connecting. I don't know. I guess it just sort of plays differently at different ages of audiences, but
Yeah.
I was just completely in love with it watching it this time.
That was one that I watched for the first time during the pandemic, and
Oh, nice.
it was like kind of like a warm blanket.
Yes. Yeah. That's a very good description for it.
Yeah.
Just, master storyteller, master filmmaker, and you're hanging out with some good performances, good time. And if you're into movies, like it's just going to make you smile.
Absolutely. So what film did you end up picking?
So I ended up picking, as I said, I went in chronological order. So this was a bit more recent than 73, but it's from 1996. I went with Olivier Assayas's Irma Vep.
Oh.
This is why you can be Irma Vep, because you have the grace. I tell them I can do the film if you do the part.
But it's just tough on me because I don't fight. I'm not a good fighter myself. So it's a little bit difficult when I have to do the actions.
I think we have to take it for a completely different point of view.
Is this one you've seen, Mike?
I have not, but I recently watched some of the remake that they did on HBO.
I am looking forward to that one because I haven't watched it yet, but Olivier Assayas is back and he's doing it as a miniseries. So it's not like somebody's doing it for him or they bought the rights. He was like, you know what? This might work.
Yeah.
And he's working with A24 to produce it. So it traditionally A24 is like, here, go make your movie. Like they're not controlling, you got to do this sort of production house. But so this is one, which is a slight theme we have on this show of, I've owned this movie for years. Like I bought it years ago. I cracked open the seal and actually put it in my Blu-ray player. Well, it's a DVD, but I put it in the Blu-ray player to watch. And I'm so glad I did. So you've got Olivier Assayas doing the writing and directing duties here. He gets Maggie Cheung to come in. If you are unaware of her, she's been basically in like most of the Wong Kar-wai movies that you love. If you've seen any of his. She's also was in Police Story 1, 2, and 3, I believe.
Okay.
I was looking at her career. She's like, you've been in all these movies I love. I didn't realize you were one of my favorite actresses. But so she's playing a version of herself in this one. She comes to France to make a film. They're doing a remake of Les Vampires, the famous like early French silent film series, I guess, really. But they're going to reimagine it where she's actually a burglar and a spy. She dresses in this like rubber latex, basically cat suit. So Irma Vep, if you swirl around those letters, spells vampire. So I was like, oh, all right. That didn't even occur to me. I may have missed it in the movie until I was reading about it. I was like, oh shit, look at that. It does do that. or it's an anagram. That's the word for it. So that's not literally about vampires, but that's the role she's going to be playing here. And again, it very close to Day for Night. I think this was much better, actually. Just barely nudges out Day for Night. That's why that wasn't my main pick. But this one, you're hanging out again. Like it's another hangout movie, which I guess is just a style I really enjoy. She's in town, so you do have this little bit of an outsider dynamic going on because she's the actress coming in to this established. You got a French film director. Actually, the French film director in this movie, played by Jean-Pierre Léaud from Day for Night.
Yeah.
Francois Truffaut staple. So there's a little bit of this outsider thing. So she's just kind of like, she's driven around, then she goes and hangs out. She goes to dinner at this place. She has dinner with the crew. I think she goes to like a rave with somebody at one point in the morning. She's exhausted. She's picked up. She goes to the set. And I think like the director is a no-show. So like they have this other director that steps in, and it's just sort of like, when we're not following the director here. So you're not like looking for like the artistic vision. The substitute director comes in and is like, well, I don't mind she was the lead. And you're like, well, what do we do about that then? So it's not like it's based on the drama of, again, like, will this or won't this come out and be a hit? It's just, you're just hanging out with these characters in this very specific environment. It gives you some like it's very light on its feet commentary of like French film history. Because obviously they're remaking like a French silent film series. So like there's some commentary on like, do we need remakes? Also, this is 1996, keep in mind. So it was like, do we need to do remakes? Why can't we just write something original? Well, this is original. It's based on something previously though, but we're doing our own spin on it. But then it's also looking at the current state of French cinema as well versus the way Hollywood works. I found it to be just as like, well, like you said, just as warm blankety as Day for Night was.
Yeah.
But just like a touch more, I think. And I don't know if it was just like the charm that Maggie Chung brings to the role of like kind of a different version of herself or what, but maybe because she's such a good vehicle as like an audience character. Cause like, I'm not French. I've never been to France. I've never been on a set in France. Her coming in as sort of like that outsider is just like, what a great venue to like take an American viewer through this particular story.
No, that sounds awesome. Cause I have watched one or two episodes of the HBO remake.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was based on something else, but I don't, it's just sometimes timing and
right.
All this, but no, it's something that I'm aware of, but I just unfortunately never seen, but the way how you're describing it is really silly.
I would wrap it up, and I'm not a huge fan necessarily of always doing comparisons, but the feeling I got from it was very close to the feeling I got as a kid or as a younger person when I watched Get Shorty the first time.
Oh yeah.
I was just kind of like, it just feels kind of cool. Like,
yeah,
all the characters, like they talk cool, they act cool, they dress cool. And like that one, this gave me some of those vibes, even as some good, it's a band. Hang on. It's in my brain. They have a couple Sonic Youth, songs in it that I was like, ooh, that's really good. I would have used that for a needle drop on our previous episode if I had watched this in time. That was a really cool moment. But it was cool. I don't know. Like, and I mean that with an exclamation point at the end of it, not as a, it was really cool. I just loved hanging out with that movie, and we'll definitely check out the remake because I like Assayas as a director. He's one of those kind of like hard to pin down on my brain, which is why I love watching his stuff. I mean, I like everything from like Summer Hours to Carlos, the other TV project he did with Edgar Ramirez.
Yeah,
like
you're
Clouds
right.
of Sils Maria, Personal Shopper, like everything he's put out. I can't peg him down as like, oh, that's an Assayas film, but like I've always enjoyed, if not loved, his stuff.
Well, yeah, you're right, because like he kind of transcends like different, or he like hops to different continents. Like he doesn't like just stick to France making these things.
Right.
Like he goes like all over, and like I know that he did at one point scout for a movie here in Ohio.
Really,
actually in the southern part of Ohio. I don't know if it ended up getting made, but I just thought that was when a friend of mine who was scouting with him, I was just like, oh my God, like he's making a movie. He's
here,
making a movie here. Like
that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, if hopefully maybe it happens down the line, because sometimes when people visit here, they eventually do something here. They may not do it right away, but
right,
that would be great.
You get in their brain and they have to come back.
Feather in the cap.
That would be awesome. What do you got, Mike? What is your pick for Films About Filmmaking?
Yeah, so this one, I wanted to find something that I've never seen before, and I didn't want to go like the traditional sense, I guess. So the one that I found came out in 1978.
All right.
And if you can guess, who do you think in 1978 was the biggest box office draw?
You mean as a star?
Yeah,
I want to say Burt Reynolds.
you are correct. And
Oh, all right.
it is a Burt Reynolds movie.
Interesting.
It came out right after Smokey and the Bandit. It's called Hooper.
Burt Reynolds is Hooper, and Hooper is a real hero. He can take more crashes. Oh, jeez! More fire.
Ah! Hello, gorgeous.
More love. More hits. He can take more risks and have more fun than anyone can imagine. This is Hooper, the story of the greatest stuntman of them all, and his competition.
Wait a year and a half to meet you. How's that? I get to perform with Sonny Hooper. Oh, hell, that ain't no big deal. I mean...
Burt Reynolds, Jan Michael Vincent, Sally Field.
I'm yours.
Brian Keith, James Best, Robert Klein, and Terry Bradshaw. In Hooper's world, talk is cheap, and life is cheaper.
We may be in trouble.
A stunt is a gag, and a gag is no laughing matter.
Bam! Building falls on you, crushes you, fade out the end. Great, Roger. Of course, we'll have a dozen cameras going.
And when the director yells,
Action! Go! 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 I want to hit it.
he really means action. Hooper's in a dangerous business, but his reward is excitement, adventure, and a fortune if he lives to collect it. Burt Reynolds is Hooper, the greatest stuntman alive.
I love stuntmen.
Hooper, the newest movie from the team that brought you Smokey and the Bandit.
And Hooper is also directed by Hal Needham, who made Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
But this movie is a love letter, essentially, to stuntmen or stunt people.
Oh, I'm in.
And so it's Burt Reynolds plays Hooper, the title character. He is like this super chill, very like relaxed stuntman, and he does all these like crazy stunts throughout the movie. And from what I've read, the relationships in the film are slightly what inspired Tarantino to make Cliff Booth and Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Rick Dalton. I'm like, how can I forget that?
Once Upon a Time. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So apparently this film kind of inspired him to make those characters. But basically it follows him as he's working on this current film as the stunt coordinator. And there is a young hotshot new guy who's come into it. And he goes by Ski, or that's what Burt Reynolds' character calls him, is Ski. But basically, he's younger, thinner, a little more daring. And it almost comes off like at first it's going to be a threat to Burt Reynolds' status, but then, he takes a liking to him. And it is a lot of times it's kind of like a hangout movie. And then all of a sudden, like there's these crazy, great stunt sequences.
Mm-hmm.
It eventually leads to them, they're working on this film that it's never really stated what it is, but there's moments in the score where it makes it sound like they're working on a James Bond movie. But
that's interesting.
Basically, there's a crossroads towards the end of the film where the director is so impressed with both Hooper and Ski's work that he rewrites the ending of the film and wants them to do this insane jump a la Speed, the bus like hopping from the
jump in the freeway.
Yeah, so it's like there's basically a drawbridge is like put down and the car has to travel over 300 something feet.
Awesome.
And it leads to like this, I don't want to spoil it, but it leads to like this really awesome sequence at the end. My jaw was dropped because of like, this was 1978, so it was all practical effects.
Oh yeah.
Just insane explosions, car stuff. I don't know. There's something about it. It's like it doesn't really have a mean bone in its body, really. It's like such an optimistic kind of movie.
Sure.
And even Sally Field's in it. At the time, I guess her and Burt Reynolds, like they started dating after Smokey and the Bandit. So it sounds like he was very loyal to a lot of his people.
Yeah.
Because like Hal Needham was his stuntman for a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, this is just a straight up love letter to the stunt people who are sadly oftentimes overlooked,
Yeah.
for so many of these movies. And I know there's still this petition at some point for stunt people to be given an Academy Award category for the Oscars.
Oh, that'd
we'll
be
see
great.
that ever happens. But yeah, it was really fun. Like, and it's like, it's like maybe a little over 90 minutes. It flew by, and just show how effortlessly Burt Reynolds, his charm was. Like, that was like the height of his charm. And one of the only movies about filmmaking that was a huge box office hit.
Oh, I was going to ask. Yeah, I was like, so this one, because I mean, at the powers he had and the hits after hit after hit he was making in the 70s.
It made like 80 million. So like back then, that's probably close to like 200 now or something.
How much was it? You say
80 million.
80, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like 70. I think it said 78, but
yeah. Irma Vep did not make 80 million at the box office. I think it was in like the hundreds of thousands in the North American box office. So
yeah.
That one, no, that's shooting to the top of my my watch list because of the 70s stuff I've been watching. I've been kind of like circling a lot of Burt Reynolds movies without actually watching them.
Yeah.
And because like I still have never done like a Smokey and the Bandit or Cannonball Run. And I really like the Hal Needham stuff that I've watched. And as far as like stunts go, but also the couple that I've seen that he directed have been, it's like, oh my God, like, Stroker Ace, I think. And then he did one with Barry Bostwick set in the future, like Magnum Force.
Oh yeah.
Or
yeah.
Mega Force.
Megaforce, yes.
Yeah, it's trash, but like, oh my God, the stunt works. And like you said, in that time period too, like you're watching not just practical effects, but you're actually watching like metal cars, like in a car chase, which just makes me giggle now. Because I was just like, oh, that's not what it looks like when a Kia wrecks anymore nowadays.
Oh, he also made Hal Needham also made the BMX movie Rad, which it's a movie like I love it. But I will fully admit that it's not the greatest movie.
Oh no, but
no, guy, he knew how to make a very entertaining movie with like kick-ass stunts, like just
yes. Yeah, he doesn't go too long without just giving you something to wow at. So
exactly,
yeah.
So our official watch challenge picks for films about filmmaking are Irma Vep from 1996 and Hooper from 1978. Aaron, what challenge do we have in front of us for next time?
Well, our next challenge, that episode is going to come out pretty close to the Christmas holidays. So we were looking at like, well, let's do something to tie it in there. And I don't want to just do like holiday or Christmas films because like that's a huge topic and I'm not terribly interested also in a lot of those, specifically ones that are only that. So we thought, let's take a look at specifically the horror side of it. So holiday horror films will be looking at next time. At the point of recording, we have something like, Violent Night is ready to come out. I keep seeing ads for it everywhere. Maybe it's just the algorithms of stuff I'm watching. It's giving me that ad, but I don't know that we're looking at more box office hit territory, like we were talking about with Films About Filmmaking, but we will see. So holiday horror films are coming up next.
If there's any justice, it will be. It will be.
Hopefully. I cannot wait to see John Leguizamo as a bad guy. Like the villain too. Like the main bad guy is John Leguizamo. That guy can chew some scenery.
Right.
Fingers crossed.
If you'd like to send us your picks for holiday horror or suggest a topic or genre you like covering on a future show, please email us at watchchallengepodcast@gmail.com or visit the links in the show notes.
Indeed. And until next time, folks, rate and review the show, whatever podcast app you are listening to us right now, and we'll see you with the next challenge.